We're up to our entire interview with the great Dave Mason, who, by the way, will have an autobiography probably around May of this year. He says he's trying to get it out in this time. You can pre-order the book, by the way, on his website, davemasonmusic.com. In this, we talk about a lot. We unpack a lot. Steve Winwood, traffic, his complicated relationship with Steve, working with Michael Jackson, George Harrison, Paul McCartney, all along the Watchtower with Jimi Hendrix doing that Bob Dylan tune. So much. Traffic, Dave Mason, We Just Disagree, and so much more on Rock History Book. When's this book coming out? I wanna read this book.
Well, it probably be coming out. With scheduling for my birthday in May is probably when it'll come out. It was we've finished up having to self-publish it. So BMG was publishing it, and then they out of the blue last minute decided they were no longer in the book business. So
how long is it finished, by the way?
It's not it's finished, but it's not completely finished. The writing's finished, and now it's just the never-ending process of getting all these photographs cleared.
You know, every time I talk to a rocker, and most of them, like I'm 63, most of my rocker interviews are with people who are 10 years older, at least, than me, but they all go through this. They said, you know, it's a cliche word, cathartic, but it is going through this. I mean, you're writing your own life here. What do you put in? What don't you put in? Do you get salacious? Do you not? Do you tell where the bodies are buried? How did you approach the process for you?
Well, pretty much. I mean, the way I wrote it, it's really it's a life story. I mean, this is not, it's got all the music stuff and who I played with and all, but it's more or less a life story, really. Ups and downs. It just happens that I make music.
You know, Rick Emmett just released his autobiography called Lay It on the Line. One chapter, my friend, is on Triumph. One chapter. He says, that's a part of my life, but there's a lot of stuff that happened in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm got, I mean, I'm pretty much straight up with all my stuff. But like I said, it's mostly, it's a life story. So I got a lot of stuff in there.
You go back to your childhood, your family.
Oh yeah. Yeah, all that. It's like I said, it's more of a my, it's a story about my journey. There's just the music or just the highlights along the way.
I'm just kind of curious. One last thing about that. Rick had told me that he wanted to put in the things in his book that helped him get through life, things he's learned, lessons, hard fought, usually in the music industry, in any industry, in life. Lessons are hard fought. We remember them. Sometimes we have to go over them over again. Do you have any of that kind of stuff in there?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I specifically, have anything that's directly like, hey, this is what I learned from this, or this is what I just lay out the journey, really. And this is what happened to me. And that's it, basically. I'm not preaching. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. Other than myself, and that's basically it.
The new version with Joe, Dear Mr. Fantasy, beautiful. Who did that video?
They did the video. The Joe's people did the video. Yeah,
really well done. What made you think of redoing? You were part of that iconic song.
Well, I've been doing that version for some time in my shows, and really, I mean, basically what I did was I rewrote this. The original tune is in a major key, and it's just basically three chords. I just rewrote it into a minor key with more chord changes to support the melody. So I changed it up drastically musically that way, but kept the basic song is the same. And I was basically came out of thinking of a way to do that tune if I was going to do it just acoustically by myself and make it interesting. So that's how it started, and then I developed it into a track, and then I got to this point where a lot of people were asking me, when are you going to do a blues album, Dave? When are you going to do a blues album? I'm like, well, I love the blues, but I'm not strictly a blues player. So I started putting together an album, 3-4 years ago, really, bit by bit. And some of them have got tracks that I've previously put out on CDs and stuff, which of course this day and age is like, doesn't mean shit anymore. It's negligible. Nobody buys, it's dead. All that making new music is just, and pretty soon, robots will be making music for film and TV, and that's what's going to happen. And it's just, so there's tunes on here that yes, people have heard, but in this terms of have a lot of people heard it? No. So I put some of the songs that I previously put out on an album which I've called A Shade of Blues, and it's got Dear Mr. Fantasy on it. It's got another version of a blues version arrangement that I've done of Low Spark of High Heel Boys that I do with Joe. Plus there's an original song called Use It or Lose It with Joe. And then the rest are all just blues flavored stuff.
How'd you two meet?
God. Well, the thing was that the song Use It or Lose It, I did that. God, I'm trying to think how long ago we cut that. I think we cut that 18 years ago. Came over to my house when I lived in California, and did some stuff with me, that being one of them. So I've kept that. That track's been sitting there dormant for 18 years.
You've got a lot of things in your holster. You've got a lot of past, a lot of people you've worked with. You're in the doctor's office. Some guy sitting beside you, he looks over at you, he asks you what you do. You say you're a musician, of course, that's what you do. But the next question is, would you have done anything I might know? Which opens up a whole, do you go there? What do you do when someone says to you and they don't know you, let's say they don't recognize you, because that's a long conversation with you. That's a lot of things. Or at a party, what do you do, sir? What do you do? What do you say?
Well, I would, basically I can sum it up with one song, and that's Feeling All Right.
Yeah.
Everybody and their grandmother knows that song.
Who was it? Eddie Trunk that said the song that keeps on giving.
Just keep, it's somebody just did it at one of the big festivals. Every bar band has played it, still plays it.
How did your parents react to you becoming famous or being successful and or whatever you want to call it? How do they react? How do your friends react when this was all happening?
Well, I've been doing this since I was, basically I've been doing this since I was 16, more or less. I pretty much left school when I was 16, 17 years old.
But there's no guarantee you'll be successful. You were.
No guarantee about anything, period. There's no golden parachute in this gig, okay? At all. So it's what I chose to do. It's my passion, I guess, and I Yeah, I always look at it that I did a lot with a little. Let's put it that way.
Redid your first album. How did that feel going into? I mean, I know you did a lot of those songs in concert. You performed a lot of those songs. That first album really hit me. That was a big record for me. But still, I mean, I noticed the packaging was different. You were talking to that Australian YouTuber, and you were showing the package of the CD that was quite nice. Um, what does it feel like going back and listening to the actual album, your younger selves, even though you do those songs? What was the
Oh, you mean the original version of Alone Together?
yeah,
And I redid it as Alone Together again.
yeah,
And mostly, I mean, really, mostly I redid it because all the master. I started doing it. It started with World in Changes, basically, which I just to take one of my songs and just do it a totally different way. So I made that into a sort of reggae version. And it started there. And then I decided to do it because all those master tapes got burnt and lost at Universal along with a bunch of other people. So I figured, screw it, I'll just re-record the whole damn thing. And then I'll own it. They
yeah.
won't. Original stuff is, I mean, I still, it just holds up pretty good, I think. So yeah, it's still, the songs I consciously have always tried to write timeless songs anyway, timeless themes, basically.
When you were working with George Harrison, was Jim Gordon the drummer around?
Jim Gordon was around long before George Harrison. I mean, I was there a long time before Eric ever got to any of those people or George, because I was playing with Delaney and Bonnie when I first moved to America in '69. So I knew all those people. Jim Gordon was on Alone Together. So him and all those people, all those people. I was there, but way before Eric. Eric got to know those people because we opened up a lot of the Blind Faith shows, and I was playing guitar with Delaney and Bonnie at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a huge, they had their biggest hit with my song, "Only You Know and I Know."
Yeah. How was Jim when you knew Jim? How was he? I just released a thing on Jim. I've got so many people talk. Richie Furay. I've got like David Henschel. So many people talking about Jim, and every one of them say the same thing. He was fine when I knew him. He was perfectly fine. Great drummer. What about you?
One of the best drummers I've ever played with, frankly. And yeah, he was just a quiet guy.
What was working with George in that iconic album? I've talked to again David Henschel, Alan White, Joey Mullen. They've all talked about their experiences on that. Well, and how did you get to know George?
I got to know. I dated a girl named Carol Russell, who was a brilliant art. She was at the Royal College of Art, and she was designing a couch for McCartney, a transparent couch that had all the characters from the Sgt. Pepper album in it. And he came by the studio one evening to see how things were going. So that's where I met him. And out of that, I was, he said, come on down to the studio sometime and hang out. So I'd go down to Abbey Road while they were recording and stuff. And that's where I got to know George and Paul mostly. And George, I eventually just I'd have casual meetings, or we'd run into each other occasionally, and then the sitar became a common bond between us. So that's how I got to know him. So I'm playing on the on All Things Must Pass. I mean, for me, it was. It's sort of I have other more memorable moments with George that are in the book than doing All Things Must Pass. because all things must pass. There were so many people there at the sessions, and if you asked me on top of my head what it played on, I couldn't. I had no idea. So
You
the
mentioned the
session,
sitar. You mentioned the sitar. Did you ever know Ravi?
no, I didn't know him. I saw him in Alaraca 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah. I interviewed him a couple of years before he died. He blessed me at the end of the interview. I said, "Oh, Ravi Shankar blessed me." Speaking of traffic, by the way, why did you leave after the first album? I know you get asked that all the time, but was
The
it you
book,
and Steve?
the book.
The book. I'll wait for it. We're going to have to talk then.
It's in the book. You don't want to talk, but after you read the book, I can't give it all away.
No, and nor should you. You did say though, and then the premise, the promo of the book is, I'll just ask you this. So it was a complicated relationship.
Well,
I know you say just sprinkles. Give me a sprinkle.
not for me. It's never been a complicated relationship. Let me put it this way. For me, no, it's never been a complicated relationship. Seems like it was for some other people, but for me, no.
Is the fact that you didn't perform at the Rock? I was just watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I hadn't seen it.
Again, that's a huge catharsis that's in the book.
Okay.
That was just it's the whole thing is a catharsis.
I was talking to the guys in Heart, the original 70s big hair, not the big hair, the longer hair version. And they were saying that, and I got this a lot, you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and it's like you're there with your ex-wife basically, and you're in a room and you've got to perform. So sometimes it's going to be frosty. I'm friends with my ex-wife, but still I get it. Cass Elliot. Tell me about working with her.
Well, Cass was Graham Parsons was basically somebody I knew when I first came here. And I kind of stayed with him, slept on a couch for about a month. But Graham sort of took me around a little bit in LA, and one of the places that eventually, and they took me up, we went up to Cass's house up in Mulholland. And it turned out that and the reason I sort of created that relationship there was because there was a couple living at her house that I knew from England, that I was really good friends with. Had no idea that they were there. So for me, it was because I'm 23, 22, 23 years old, just coming to America. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Traffic was just getting kind of known. And I was taken off the album cover anyway when it was released here. So nobody knew who the hell I was. And so I was just a stranger in a strange land. So having people there that I knew really well was a place that I kept gravitated to a lot. So out of it, that developed, friendship with Cass. And out of that developed, we'd sit around and make music at the house, and it just sort of rolled into, well, we should maybe record some stuff. Sure, why not? What the hell? So that's really how that all came about.
What was your impression of her? What was your first impression of her?
Cass was great. Cass was sort of always, unfortunate. I mean, she was basically, other than John Phillips, the voice of the Mamas and Papas. I mean, that she was doing all the parts on record. I don't think Michelle Phillips was doing much other than looking good. Cass had a great wicked sense of humor. See, Cass could have been the contemporary Sophie Tucker. That's who Cass should have been.
Richie Fiore said, Richie says he didn't party a lot, so I take his word for it, but he said she used to have great parties, but he said he didn't go. So I don't know. I'm going, wouldn't you at least go?
Well, I was there a lot, so
So, I know the story about a lot of people have asked me. I asked last night on my Facebook page about, questions for you. And what came up a lot, of course, and I was familiar with it. I remember Save Me. I know you've told the story a million times, and they did perform that particular song, not Save Me, one of yours on Diana Ross's special in 71. So did you just walk over while they were recording their album and say, hey, you said you needed a high voice?
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I needed a high part on the song "Save Me," and Michael was on a break and just yeah, come on, would you be up for coming singing on this part for me? And he was told related the story about the Diana Ross show and said sure, absolutely, be happy to.
Well,
That's
speaking of, what's he like? Quiet?
all I mean, all I really had him there for was to sing on that thing. I mean, he did more than I thought he was going to do, and he just was great. Just sort of came in, did it, and went back to his session. So,
if that would have been released during Thriller, and I know it's been said many times, I think Song Facts said it, that if that song would have been released, that would have been a huge hit. People would have at least given it a chance and listened to it.
yeah, but the problem was that it was on an album that was at the end of my shit with Columbia, and Columbia was just, there was nobody at that company anymore that was going to do anything. I mean, they got rid of Clive, they got rid of anybody that was a good. The problem was that America, went to this stupid consensus. We've all gone into this consensus, like everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a nose, but there's no one guy running. Back in the old days, record company, you had one guy. It was just a great record guy. It was a rebel. And he said, "Okay, here, this is what I'm going to. I'm doing this. Move the whole company." That just went away. That went away. There was it was like I said, it all became consensus.
Didn't Clive bring you into that deal? Clive brought you in, right? Clive brought you in, but then he was gone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of leaves you in a lurch.
Well, that was the story. That was the story with lots of a lot of things in the record business. You'd be there, you'd make, there was a great, like the Wall Street Journal does an article on every issue that's in the center. It's usually down right in the center, and it's got something to do with something. And they had one that was in the center, it was about the music business. And this was back in I think back in the early 80s or something around that time. And this article, and basically what it came down to is this 2% of every single record put out by every single label makes money. The other 80%, the other 98%. So 2% is supporting the entire industry. That's basically it. There's so much shit on the shelves. I mean, you get signed by somebody, some act could get signed by somebody, they'd make an album, they do a thing, the guy would be gone. And that'd be the end of that project. It goes and gets shelved because there's nobody behind it pushing it, So that's kind of the state of the union these days. There's what used to be and what it is now is just the only thing that's not changed and the only thing that we still have left is playing live. That's it.
Yeah. I was watching the special on the first the first Traffic album, and there's Jim and there's Steve, and Chris is dead, I think, by that time. And they did it, and I'm waiting for you. I even fast forwarded it, like I'm going, because you can see it on YouTube, right? You can see who's on the screen. I'm going, okay. And I went back, saw another version of it, and it's a longer version of this time. I'm going, well, he's going to be there. I'm waiting for you. and you're not there. And I mean, I know you can't really talk about it, but I was disappointed. I'm going, what? What's going on? You were there.
You should ask. Well, you should ask that. Well, the only person you can ask is Winwood. He's the only one left alive. So the other two
Yeah.
have gone.
Was it true that you guys had during that first album, Bonham would show up, Pete Townsend, Eric Clapton at that barn when you guys were recording? We were jamming.
Oh, the house we had?
Yeah, yeah.
No, there's no, but they didn't do. I mean, some people would come down, but no, they never came there. I tried to get Hendrix to come down a couple of times, but it didn't work out, and they weren't very keen on it. The rest of them, so
What the hell? All speaking of segue, all along the Watchtower. I mean, that's I just talked to Terry Brown, Rush's producer, and he he was there for one song. He said and he had tea with Jimmy. Very quiet. Everyone says he was very quiet. What was your impression of him?
Jimi Hendrix,
Yeah,
very quiet guy, except when he was in the studio. He was just all business, all work.
yeah.
And never. I mean, I hung out with Jimmy quite a few times, and played on Watchtower and sang on Crosstown Traffic. And there's some other tracks that I played bass and sitar on that I have no. Although I think they're out, and I think I heard that they think people saying it's Brian Jones playing the sitar on it. It's not. It's me. So if we get to hear it, so I did some of that stuff with him. We got up a few times in clubs and jammed at the Royal Albert Hall. We'd hang out sometimes, listen to records.
How does a guitarist want to? What is it in someone that wants to tackle something like the sitar? I mean, what is? You just have a curious mind. What happens if I do this? What like? That just seems like a very complicated instrument to me.
Yes. Well, they all are, just what it was the times, it was the times I was 19, 20 years old, and I was sort of dabbling around with anything and everything, guitar and bass and Chennai and sitar and, whatever.
Hole in My Shoe, biggest hit they ever had.
Yep.
That man right there. Tell me about that tune.
What do you want to know about it?
Well, the process of putting it together, writing, anything. I know you've told the story a million times.
I mean, the closest I can give you about Traffic is Hole in My Shoe is the beginning of the end, okay?
That's it? Okay, so you're sitting at Mick Fleetwood's home in Malibu, and somehow he's playing you tapes of guitarists, and that's how you get in. Is that a true story?
For what? For
Fleetwood Mac?
Nah, Mick just called me up and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of." I was in a bit of a lull period, not really doing much, and he's like, I'm thinking of putting something back together with the Mac. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's give it a shot.
Your version of The Chain, I think you guys opened with that. That what the vocals on that is strong. I mean, it's not the same as the other one, but I was watching your concert last night. I'm going, and I know that version got a lot of flack because you can't replace Stevie Nicks, but is it true you and Becca didn't get along?
Becca, I've known Becca since she was in diapers.
Why am I reading that you two Mick Fleetwood had said that in his autobiography? Doesn't mean it's true, but he said you two didn't get along.
No, I don't know why they would say that.
And of course, the history with her parents. Yeah, of course.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't, I'm sure there were times when like anything, somebody isn't getting along. She's a handful. But I've known her since she was in diapers, for Christ's sake. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, playing with their parents.
You didn't live far from Jim Capaldi, right? You like 10 kilometers or 10 miles away in the early days?
Capaldi lived 12 miles away in Evesham.
Yeah.
Robert Plant lived what? Another 13 miles away in Kidderminster. McRouse was 8 miles away.
Something was in that soil.
No, the rest of those, Birmingham bands, Denny Lane, The Move, they were all 35 miles away in Birmingham.
You played with Spencer Davis. You were on vocals.
I sang on Somebody Help Me and Give Me Some Lovin' and I'm a Man.
So how did that happen? Like through association?
Well, it was the beginnings of Traffic. Well, he was still in Spencer Davis. And Jim and I, we were huge Spencer Davis fans. I mean, Steve Winwood fans, really. So that's how that came about. And it came about because we'd all got to know we all hung out together when we could. A year and a half before Traffic started. So that was just from hanging out with Steve.
To you, Steve Winwood is? To Dave Mason, Steve Winwood is?
Steve Winwood was enormously talented. Is. I mean, he was just, we like I said, Jim and I were huge fans. I mean, the guy was he was 15 when they did their first hit, Dimples. So, he came out the box being able to do all that shit. Singing, guitar, keyboards, piano, organ, and whatever the reasons and whatever happened, he was my entree into what I do now.
By the way, can people pre-order your book? I forgot to ask you.
You can pre-order the book from the website. Yes, DaveMasonMusic.com.
Are you doing signed copies and stuff?
I will be doing signed copies, yes.
Is it okay because this interview will start on Monday, we'll do different segment. Is it okay if we put underneath in the lower third that you can do that? Is that to promote?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll make sure I do.
Pretty sure.
I saw it on your website, but I wasn't sure how old or new.
Yeah, I think it's pretty new because we're just getting started, but I think there's like 50 or 100 pre-orders up there already. Okay. But yes, you can.
First time you heard Joe Cocker doing Feeling All Right?
Shit, I should have done that. I mean, that's the version that's why it's been covered so many times. It's his version. I mean, I owe him big time. Denny Cordell, really, who's managing him.
Listen to what the man said, Paul McCartney. How did that happen?
I was just playing in a show in New Orleans, I think I'm not sure if Denny came by. I think they came to the show, and they were, we're recording. Why don't you stop by at the studio? And I had a day off the next day, so that's how that happened. So I went by the studio, and Paul was like, "Here, play this." With me. Okay.
So what an iconic song.
That's how that happened.
David Becker, who's a jazz guitarist, I don't know if you know him, but he says, "Cool. I went to school with his current drummer, Marty." He just wanted to say that to you.
Marty Farah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty's cool. Marty's just basically joined the band.
Anyway, you just want to say that. This is just a few from the fans. Darren says, "What's your thoughts looking back now being a member of Fleetwood Mac for that brief period?"
We were the Fleetwood Mac cover band.
Well, Mick had said they shouldn't. He didn't have a problem with you guys all coming out. From his perspective, looking back, Mick had said we should have called this something else.
Well, the problem, you know what, the real problem is that Christine did the album, but she wouldn't go on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have made a huge difference if she'd have been part of that going out there, you know. But she wouldn't do the touring with us. But she did the album, so it was kind of, you know, it was a little odd.
Richard Schwann says, was he really considered to be Bob Welch's replacement in Fleetwood Mac before Lindsey Buckingham? When after Bob left originally?
I have no idea.
So back then when Bob Welch left, Mick Fleetwood never approached you way back then? It would have been in 75, 74, 75?
No.
Isn't that weird how things get out there like that?
Well, you know, what's on Wikipedia. It's so bullshit. I mean, last time I looked on Wikipedia, some guys they've got written convinced that Eric Clapton's playing on "Look at You, Look at Me" and "Alone Together."
Really?
Oh yeah. It's actually written. It's in there. It's like it's Eric Clapton playing, and it's like Eric Clapton isn't anywhere near the album.
Someone sent me a link that I think it's you. Take It to the Limit, live in Universal Amphitheater 75. Is that you?
Probably. I did it.
Randy's song?
I used to do it. Yeah, it's on Certified Live.
Did you know Randy?
No, it's just a great song.
Hope you enjoyed that. What an interesting character. And here's the thing about the Dave Mason interview we just did about a month ago, is that he couldn't tell us all the juicy stories because he's saving them for the book. And can you blame the guy? I kept asking him, though, can you give me some sprinkles of stuff? Because what a career. And I've been trying to get Dave Mason for quite a few years. We'll have him back on when the book is released, or pre-order the book that's coming out. Remember, if you want to get early access to our videos, join our Patreon, and it's all right there. If you join our second tier of Patreon, you get bonus clips that are not available anywhere else. Buy our swag. There are Rock History book t-shirts, Rock History music, Rock History Canada. The links are in the description. Also, really comment on our videos. We're always so excited to read your comments. Like our videos, subscribe to the channel, and share our videos. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book. Take care of yourself.